Back with us on the SportsMax Zone. Jamaica's top men's table tennis player, Simon Tomlinson, will not compete at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, England. Tomlinson, the many-time national champion, posted a lengthy message on social media addressing his omission from the list of athletes down to represent Jamaica at the 12-day event in Birmingham. So we sought to share what Tomlinson wrote. Having been selected by the Jamaica Table Tennis Association as part of the team, the association has now seen it fit to remove me from the team based on inaccurate accusations, he writes. Not only as a national rep, but as the many-time national senior men's champion for nearly a decade, I've always ensured I'm within the stipulated guidelines when it comes to qualification for events locally and internationally. At the time of qualification, he went on for the games, I was the national champion, finishing first at the national trials as well as my local and international rating as the highest ranked active Jamaican in the world. The Table Tennis Association failed to cite any punishable violation I may have committed as justification for my disqualification. Instead, the association has taken their current position based on the following. 1. My non-participation at the Caribbean Championships in Cuba. 2. My claimed lack of preparation ahead of the Commonwealth Games. And 3. My non-participation at the recently held National Championships. As regards my non-participation at the Caribbean Championships, as I had thoroughly explained to various members of the Table Tennis Association, as well as my teammates, I decided not to participate as I had, at that point in time, just started my current full-time job and felt extremely uncomfortable leaving while still in my 90-day probationary period. As many local athletes would appreciate, we play for the love of the sport, but you also have to have regard to the realities of earning a livelihood. And he says while he wasn't able to represent Jamaica at that time, regrettably, this was never stated at that time as a punishable act nor an obstacle to his qualification for the Commonwealth Games. Now, we've given you all of that, but we've also invited Simon to join us to shed some more, to give perhaps more perspective to what he wrote on social media as it regards to his non-inclusion to the team for the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Simon, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I have skated through what you wrote on social media. I didn't have to take time over it because you're here to speak for yourself. Give me a timeline of what happened between the time when you did not make yourself available for the Caribbean Championships and then being notified that you are not going to the Commonwealth Games despite being Jamaica's #1 and the reigning national champion.
Okay, well, I had to start at the national trials. We have to compete at the beginning of the year to decide who will be on whichever team is traveling. So I participated and won the trials. First up was the Caribbean Championships. I wasn't able to go again because of work. And after that, still no word about it being a deterrent to Commonwealth, but they announced the national championships on the 17th of June to take place on the 15th to the 18th of July. Mm-hmm. I was borderline forced, or it was attempted to force me to play the national championships by the president, and I refused because, of course, you know, as an athlete, you have to prepare well to try and peak at various times, and orientation was for the Commonwealth Games. So without trying to stress myself too much to make those changes, we decided, me and my coach, that we were going to focus on Commonwealth. At which point the president decided to make his move to remove me from the team.
So when you say that you, after the national trials earlier in the year, where you won, no argument there about who was Jamaica's #1 at that time.
No.
And then you indicated that you weren't available for the Caribbean Championships.
Yes.
Who did you speak to?
I spoke to both President Liu and to Colette Palmer.
Speaking in terms of sending written correspondence or a phone conversation?
Phone conversations mostly.
Right, but there's no argument as to what you said to them and how they interpreted what you said?
No.
All right. Did you at any time understand that your selection to the Commonwealth Games was contingent upon you either playing at those championships, the national championships, or being available to play at the Caribbean Championships in Cuba?
Well, President Liu, when I expressed that I wouldn't be playing the nationals, President Liu repeatedly said that, you know, it would be negative on Jamaican table tennis if I didn't play the national championships. I asked him to explain how, and he couldn't. He said that there would be backlash if I weren't to participate. Still don't understand where that would come from. But the final thing was that he said he would have to remove his support from me for the games. So that to me was very vague at the time, not knowing that it meant he planned to exclude me from the games entirely.
So what I'm trying to get at is this now. Is it in the gift of a president of the Table Tennis Association to singularly choose the representatives to a national team, or are there guidelines which govern how a team should be selected, taking consideration of, but not solely focused on position at national championship, rank in the country, and rank internationally for the country?
No, I think that would invite some form of maybe favoritism. So I don't believe that there is any one person has the power to say who can go on a team. You have to earn your selection.
So when the president then says to you that you would not have his support, what did you take him to mean?
I honestly didn't know, because I don't think that there's any correspondence with any other player about whether or not they were obligated to play the national championships. As a matter of fact, the team for the Commonwealth was selected months in advance of the national championships. So it's not as though my non-participation affects the team. The team can't be changed. So instead of having the 3 representatives to the Commonwealth Games, myself, Kane and Solisha, now we have 2. It isn't a case of where you can be switched out or substituted. You can't. It's a set in stone. So no, I wasn't aware that that is the direction that you'd want to go. I'm not sure why, since there's no benefit. Of course, you now have 1 less player and therefore 2 less events to play, 2 less chances to potentially get medals.
Yeah, when this story first broke, Simon, there was a report in the media suggesting that you would challenge the JTTA's position legally. Did you pursue that?
Challenge legally? No. I wrote to them through my lawyer, but I wouldn't say that I was going to challenge them legally. That would, I think, incite too much negativity and not a direction that I want to go to. Again, this is not a matter of me wanting to bash Jamaican table tennis. This is a matter of me having earned my spot to the games in every way, shape, and form, and then being denied the opportunity.
Yeah, let me ask you this, though. The relationship that you have with the President Lou and the JTTA executive, has it been a good one, let's say in the past year or so?
I wouldn't say it's been the best, but definitely not a bad one. I mean, I wouldn't consider, them to be anyone that I'd go out with as for dinner, right? But there is a certain level of respect that you have to have as a player for your administration, which is what I had for them.
Can you talk to us briefly about any tension or any prior lack of cohesiveness between yourself and the association? Because when a story like this comes out, you can't help but feel, as an outsider looking in, that there's something beneath this story.
Well, no, I wouldn't be able to identify any single occurrence that would lead to something like this. Again, we've had a professional relationship, and it's not phone calls I'd ever ignore, and no reason to speak badly about. So there's nothing that I would say could lead to something like this. That's something that feels as malicious
or
as
acrimonious.
Targeted. Exactly.
Yes.
It doesn't seem necessary, and again, there's no benefit.
Yeah, the Jamaica Table Tennis Association has been in the headlines for a couple of years now because of a lot of conflict and even the power struggle for the presidency. The previous president, Godfrey Lothian, died just about a year ago, and there is the well-documented battle between himself and the now President Lou for the presidency of the association. How do you feel about the administration of table tennis in the country, given the climate that I just presented?
I would think that given the circumstances under which Mr. Lothian's presidency ended and under which Mr. Lou's began, that you would try to avoid more conflict, that you would try to do your best to satisfy the player base and to at least start building a system in which table tennis can get better. And it seems to me like an act like this seems to be the exact opposite, because you have players who have qualified for events, who've put in the work necessary, who've proven themselves over time, and to, in my opinion, single out one, target one, and just go on with an act like this doesn't really make much sense to me. So I would think that as an administration, they would try to, mitigate the areas where something like this might come up.
Yeah. What was your rating of the late Godfrey Lothian's leadership of table tennis in the country?
Oh, Mr. Lothian and I had a very up and down relationship as well. I wouldn't say it was perfect. We definitely had disagreements, but he would refer to me as my boy. So when it comes to rating his association or his leadership, I'd say it was rocky, but he had excellent intentions, and he was never as malicious as this administration has been.
Oh, so you describe this one as malicious?
In this instance, towards me, yes.
Kane Watson defeated the 40-plus-year-old Marsh in the men's final in the Nationals. How good are these two players, and how close are they to you?
Both very close. Both players I've traveled with several times for several years. Kane and I are notorious 1 and 2 for the last over the decade. Chris is also a very well-established player, someone who I enjoy traveling with, someone who I enjoy having in my corner. So both players that I play with, look up to, respect, but will not fear to beat when the time comes.
I just want to establish for the benefit of the viewers the selection policy that exists at the Table Tennis Association, because I'm putting the question again. Is it that there is on paper, whether in the Constitution or an article of the association which governs player selection for national team duties, which sets out what qualifies a player's eligibility and then beyond eligibility selection for a national team?
Well, you have the criteria that I've stated before. So you can be, as national champion, that puts you at the head of the list. You'd think that that'd be number one player. You have the trials that every age group or every category must play in order to represent the country. And you can qualify through your rankings, whether international or local. Those are the 3 typical standard guidelines that you use to pick teams.
All right. So based on those guidelines, as you understand them, the rankings issue, you've covered that because you're number 1. The trials issue, you've covered that because you were the top man at trials. What was the other one?
National championship.
National champion, which you didn't go to.
No, this year's national championship.
This year's national
championship. At the point of selection,
yes.
The team was picked from March, April.
So you were told from March, April that you were going to Commonwealth.
Yes.
And you were the national champion, the previous championship.
Yeah,
right.
The last 5 previous championships.
So it would appear then that, well, Mr. Lou is not here to answer. He'd be a perfect man to answer. How is it that Simon Tomlinson maneuvered his way out of a place that he was told that he had from as early as March this year?
Well, it's not only that I was told.
Yes.
I've already fulfilled all the necessary documentation. They were the ones who sent me to get the visas, to get the accreditations, to get everything entered to the JOA, because the JOA is who ultimately enters you for the event. The association sends the list of players who are eligible, and then later on, those who have actually qualified, so which I am one of.
The JOA actually entered you for the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, I'm fully registered.
Yeah.
If, for example, if I were to be in England right now, perfect, I'd be fine.
So again, just to bring the point home to the viewers, by March you were told that you were going, and you said you did the necessaries to go.
Yes.
If nobody had done nothing between that point and last week, you would have been going to the Commonwealth Games.
Correct.
But somebody did something, which was to remove your name.
Correct.
And you, as you said to Lance in your last answer, that you are apportioning malice to the association in this instance.
Yes.
For the reason for you not going. All right. So when you had told Mr. Lou that you weren't available because of work commitments and the need to settle in during your probationary period, which is very reasonable. I don't think anybody would think that that's an unreasonable excuse to cite or reason to cite.
Not in our construct where our professionals, well, let's not call them professionals, but our sports representatives do have to have their jobs.
Absolutely.
Because they have to earn.
Yes. So nobody reasonable would find that that's a reason that is wishy-washy.
Yes.
So in that context, was there in the exchange and the correspondence with Mr. Lou any acrimony, any needle in the conversation? Did you speak to him in plain terms? He responded in plain terms. Did you get the sense that maybe he is displeased based on the tone that he used in the conversation, and maybe he's posturing to do something damaging to me.
Well, no, I would never try to deliver anything in a tone that could be perceived as negative. It was...
Or even disrespectful.
Or disrespectful, least of all disrespectful, no. I did want to go to the championships. Of course, I'm a player and I still enjoy competing. I still enjoy the thrill of competition. It wasn't a fun conversation, I would say, but it was one that had to happen based on the reasons. So I wouldn't say anybody was particularly happy, but it wasn't a matter of anyone being angry, I would say.
But did your own antenna not go up when he said to you that, well, look, if you can't travel and participate, I'm going to withdraw my support?
That only happened at the national championships, which was again after the point of selection, months after the point of selection.
But what I'm saying is this: even though you knew you had been selected, and even though he said that after your selection, were you not perturbed when he said that
No.
Maybe he could go and rescind and remove your name from the list of those who should represent Jamaica in this discipline?
No, not. It was vague. When someone says they're going to remove their support for you, what does that mean?
And I think, Simon, to be clear, these nationals were in mid-July,
Yes.
which is on the eve of the Commonwealth Games. So I think it would be reasonable for us to think that you felt that your Commonwealth Games spot was secure, given the time. Time.
Exactly.
What's the explanation given to you, if any, for your name not being
The
there?
explanation, would you want to see the letter? I can show it to you.
Well, you can just paraphrase for me. Yeah.
The letter states that, not states, due to my one lack of preparation, which the president and I have had no conversation about, the association does not handle my training whatsoever.
Yes.
The lack of involvement in the Caribbean Championships, which again we've gone over, and my non-participation in national championships, none of which are criteria to go to Commonwealth.
Yeah. Who's your coach?
Stephen Hilton.
Stephen Hilton is your coach.
So
How does he feel about this?
He finds it borderline ridiculous.
has there been a camp for the other two which they've participated in but which you've not made yourself available for?
There have been no camps. There's barely national training for the senior program. Well, I wouldn't say barely, but it's mostly juniors who attend. As far as I know, Solisha is currently in Miami, but I don't think this is a JTTA sponsored camp. I know she's there training though, ahead of the Commonwealth. Kane has not been entered to any camps either.
So when the letter says that you haven't, my words now, you haven't made yourself available to prepare adequately for the Commonwealth Games, what do they mean? Given that they've not organized a camp that you've absented yourself from, or that you've turned up and not shown the requisite commitment? And I'm trying to understand that.
I tell you what, when you find the answer, let me know. You can let me know.
This is. How old are you now, Simon?
I'm 30.
3-0.
Do you? So this snub for you. Are you embittered by it? Are you demotivated? What emotion would best describe your reaction to this situation?
Disappointed. I wouldn't say embittered. I mean, it's not as though I will use every chance to get back at the association. I have no intention to. Again, I don't want to throw table tennis into any form of negative light. I'm happy to be here with you guys today. I'm not happy for the reason why.
Yeah.
Right? As for demotivated, I left the gym after 2 hours this morning and trained for 2 hours after. So demotivated would not cross my mind.
That answers the question. All right. I know that you're a young man, 30 is very young, of good vibes. Yeah. What would you like to say to your colleagues who remain on that list to play table tennis for Jamaica at these games?
Give them hell. That's it. Kane and myself, well, and Solisha as well, we've been traveling together for years. We are used to situations where it's not ideal, where we're expected to perform under any circumstance, really. Give them hell.
Yeah. Weren't you in a pretty highly publicized media presentation during COVID when you were actually away on a training camp, yourself and Kane, wasn't it? And the COVID issue hit you guys based on you're being away at the time. Can you just briefly refresh our memories on that? Because I seem to remember that story.
All right, so at the beginning of the pandemic, Kane and I were in we're traveling around Europe. So we went to Spain, Portugal, and Sweden to play tournaments to prepare for the Olympic trials. We were in Spain when the pandemic was just kicking off, you know, everything was shutting down. We got one of the last flights out of Spain and got back home. We were then grounded for the year and then had to do the same thing the year after for Olympics 2021.
Yeah, I seem to remember that. Your coach, Stephen Hilton, and Michael Hyatt, I think, were the first table tennis representatives for Jamaica at the Olympic Games. Stephen was a fabulous player in his time. I'm sure he would have told you that.
Several times. Matter of fact, he never fails to mention.
Yeah, he never shuts up about it, eh? He never shuts up.
This is a very disturbing story, George and Simon, because I seem to remember the late Dexter St. Louis, the Trini left-hander, southpaw, having serious conflicts with the Table Tennis Association in Trinidad and Tobago as well.
But I tell you this, it's funny we're here talking about it, because I had several flashbacks while Simon was giving his story, because when I just left university and went into the newsroom, into the sports department at Nationwide, one of the first controversial topics I dealt with concerned table tennis. And we call him legendary, not in the way that people accord legendary status, but legendary for his ability to cause division. The legendary Joseph Dibbs.
Yes.
He was in the news every week and the fight for them. So when you talk about Lothian presidency and how Lothian died and the struggle between himself and Lou, it was like deja vu all over again. Yeah,
and this is exactly why I didn't want to be forced into this course of action. Table tennis there's too much negativity around such a fantastic game. There's no need for it. Yeah. This to me is a pointless act. You don't benefit from it. Yeah. Now you have one less player, one less chance to compete. It's not you can't be replaced. Yeah. It's senseless.
Yeah. You know, Lance, I don't normally say this, but the fact is that to prove Simon's point that, you know, he didn't really want to muddy the waters and to drag the JTTA down, you notice he said that his attorney only wrote a letter asking for clarification rather than threatening to, you know, that's just to show that, you know, I want to keep it as civil as possible, trying to resolve the situation. It is needful for us, though, to hear from Mr. Lou, because I'm very keen to know from his perspective the reasons cited and the justification for the reasons cited, because the man in question says, I mean, they don't apply. Yeah. They represent what you call Boulder Dash, Mr. Lou. We need to hear from you. We'll take a break here on the SportsMax Zone. Back with more after these. Simon, all the best.
Thank you. Man. Great, man.